Welcome back to Geek Judge. In today's episode, we plan to cover three areas which are interesting us. Now, you should wait for the third one. But the first one we want to cover is Singapore had its own AI summit. They already had been having a few summits, but this year they call it Super AI. So we want to detangle and find out what is super about AI and this AI summit, right? And the second thing that we want to also talk about is the Future of Finance Institute. They had been that's an abstract organization, but they have multiple knowledge hubs being built within that organization. So we would like to understand from Mahesh, our partner and host guest today. He's in the financial industry. We want to untangle this one and understand what it entails to the future of financial industries, and what it entails to the standardization. The third topic we want to cover is that we in the sense we people who are working in the US, we are a kind of privileged because we do not have any restrictions. We are the place where we are inflicting restrictions on other teams, right? So we do not see the pain that other countries go through when we are restricting, let's say, an NVIDIA chip, or when you are restricting a particular LLM models being to consumed by other teams. So I want to get the thought process of for Far East countries, specifically countries like Singapore or India, and even Australia for that matter. How do they receive these restrictions? How do they perceive this one? What are they doing to build that sovereignty within themselves? So wait for us. We'll cover these three topics and we'll move from there. So with that said, Mahesh, thanks for joining us.
I am Mahesh, happy to be in Geek Judge. I am in Singapore for the last 20 years and I'm working mostly in the financial institutions like Deutsche Bank, Stanchart, then Credit Suisse, now in UBS. So in all the banks now we saw more transformations, and last 2 years we've been seeing AI transformation, and I'm into that, and it is quite interesting and very amusing also. I just wanted to talk about these things and what is happening in the east side of the globe.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that makes, and then we also have Bala Subra who's my friend who's part of Geek Jet most of the time. So let's talk about what's happening in Singapore. We know we pretty much have conferences in US, multiple conferences. We had covered it in our other channel in Tamil, but we'd like to know the Super AI conference that you had in Singapore. So just give me a highlight. What was the conference about? What did you guys discuss? I know Singapore is a tech hub for most of the banks there, like you said. But tell me what happened in Super AI.
Yeah, Singapore has been hosting AI-related events since last 4-5 years. Anyway, FinTech Festival always happens. I think it has been happening for the last 10 years every year. And also mostly payments-related conferences. But last 2 years, there has been more emphasis on AI. And last year also, there was one AI conference happen, and this is a Super AI conference. This happened in June 11, 12, or 2-3 days here. And second 2 days were open for public, and there are 3 other days very closed door conference were also there. And this time, there were around 10,000 participants closely on the next 2 days. And there were people from mostly the prominent players were Google DeepSeek, Google DeepMind, then Mistral AI and Quen, Alibaba. So these were the prominent players, and rest were all. This time it was more equal emphasis, I would say, more on fintech and physical AI. Now Singapore is always been like Switzerland of the East, so it has been a financial hub for all these years. And now it is also transforming itself into a manufacturing hub also, because if you see the semiconductor export has been every year, it has been year on year, there is a lot of growth there. They are the more basic foundry chip suppliers for most of the semiconductor companies. So we have USMC, SMS, TSMC, everybody here in Singapore. Even IBM's Global Foundry is also here. So this year the emphasis has been on more on the physical AI also, and how these facilities in Singapore can augment and help those movements. Because in 2023 they talked about generative AI, then they went to in 2024 maybe about software generations, then about autonomous agents last year, and now this year they are getting to the physical world, how the manufacturing industry sees. Because in the last 1 year you would have seen in China and all lots of humanoids and robotics getting into action. So they were also here to showcase theirs, and the manufacturing industry is now infusing AI into most of its workflows. It started with maybe how software will do bug fixing. They are also doing in the maintenance side. Now they're getting into the manufacturing side also. So this was the emphasis more on this year's Super AI event here. And also there was emphasis on the healthcare side, where people were from various people were talking about precision surgeries, telesurgeries, very precision surgeries, and also tele consulting and all. So these were all very interesting there.
Perfect, perfect. So we always think like Singapore is advanced, but it's also a small country, right? So I don't know how much of manufacturing is there, because most of the manufacturing happens in our neighboring countries such as China or Taiwan, mostly, right? And then there are a few pockets of manufacturing in Europe. But Singapore as a manufacturer, when you say physical AI, can you expand on that one? Are you thinking about manufacturing these chips or manufacturing these physical mechanics in Singapore?
No, it is more about manufacturing as such. May not be much in Singapore, but most of the manufacturing companies, either in China or Vietnam or Thailand or anywhere in Southeast Asia, they do have a big marketing houses here. So and Singapore opens up lots of sandboxes for them because of the AI facilities, and all the ecosystem is built around that for them to play around, to test. It's more like a live lab for them. So there are lots of facilities given by Singapore with its facilities. So people come here like Amazon, Flipkart from India, or BYD of China. Everybody has got some facility here who are all testing their frontier end models and frontier end physical AI models here as a test bed here, and then they'll take the learnings, all them, and then infuse it to their manufacturing hub somewhere else in the China or somewhere. So it is more about consulting, providing sandbox environments, and providing consulting and all the facilities they need, everything in a box. So that's how Singapore helps them.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect. So, and you said like this conference has been happening before, but maybe like because of AI now, everyone is focused on AI. Like the super AI. So maybe I'll ask a very blunt question. Like, what is super about this AI conference?
I think it's just a title. That's all. Nothing more about that.
You broke the bubble there. But anyway, so you said like there are about like 7,000 to 10,000 plus participants. For a country like Singapore, like I know you have a fantastic airport and everything, like and crowd control is a little bit difficult in a small place like Singapore. But with that all said, like any recent or any important announcement that was made here, I know that anytime these kind of conference happens, we have like big numbers being thrown out, and then we have people talking about commitments in terms of investments. But beyond that, technically, what other any new innovations that has been announced in this conference?
When it comes to conferences, Singapore has been one of the revenue generating industry of Singapore is the MICE, that is meetings, incentives, conference and exhibition. So Singapore has been expo and conferences for so long. So crowd control is just left hand play for them. Even if it's 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000, they manage them very elegantly and efficiently. And there have been crowd control is not a problem at all. And places like Medina Bay Sands is a very elegant place for such meetings. This time, no, generally these kind of meetings invite around 10 or 50, 60 countries, but this time they said around 100 plus countries came into this. So that was one interesting fact. But we also saw that many people from African countries were here. Generally, in the previous summits, we didn't see much, but this time the African crowd was much there. It was very visible. They were also more into finance. So it seems that African financial institutions are now adapting AI into a much faster pace to be very competitive. So it seems they are quite interested in that, and they're also into investing much there. I didn't see much announcements there, but Alibaba and Mistral was announcing that they will be giving some SOPs to people who are adopting their models or their services from Singapore. They will be giving some incentives for them for next 1 or 2 years. So those were some of the SOPs announced. And after the meeting, there were some press meets were held, and they said there were some investments of around 110 billion were announced between the partners who came there. But these we need to see how much get shape into actually. But it was like a McKinsey report that said around 100 plus billion was investments were promised between these partners.
No, that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Dinesh, I need to interject, and I had a question for you. So, when you attend these kind of conferences, what do you look for? I know we had been to many conferences. So, what would be your goals behind going to these conferences?
Yeah. So usually when I go to these conferences, like the best thing I'd seen in most of the conferences, keynote speakers and who is the keynote speaker and what kind of keynote speech they are making, right? Because most of the technical, it's kind of summarizing everything that meeting is about, and then the keynote speaker and the caliber of the keynote speaker kind of determines the entirety of how the rest of the agenda for the meeting is set up. That's one thing I'll do. The second thing I also check out is like, a lot of these big conferences have like, uh, other smaller sections. They will talk about they'll deep dive into any of the technologies, right? So apart from the expo kind of setup where they have multiple stores and everything, these kind of breakaway sessions is where the deep technologies are known. So I'll like, usually pick up like, 2 to 3 of those breakaway sessions per day and then try to go and sit there. And usually I take a laptop because most of these are hands-on sessions where you can like, experiment some of those things. And of course they give freebies and everything, but in spite of that, like, working on those things is what I usually say for. Like maybe Mahesh, did you see like, anything in terms of the breakaway sessions? Like, how was this whole thing conducted?
No, here generally I see expos, these kind of expos in Singapore is like there will be a main stage where will be lots of talks happening and panel discussions happening, and there will be side 2 stages or 3 stages where smaller segments. These main stage sections will be around say 60 minutes to 90 minutes long sessions, and there will be side sessions which will be like bite-sized sessions also will be there, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes happening. And there will be hackathons happening in the side. That will be from the startups and universities in Singapore. They will be doing some hackathons. And second or third day, they will be giving some prizes or some announcements, and they will also get some fundings, also seed fundings. So these all things happening here. For me, what interests is like you said, the first day keynote, and I normally go for what the industry speakers come from there, and mainly use case discussions. I very narrow down, focused use case discussions I attend. So one of the things I attended was the AI insurance company was giving some good use cases where they were telling about where their autonomous agents failed or which uncontrolled and irresponsible or unethical things they did, which there were some autonomous agents that made some claims that were not, the claims cannot be honored, but they did the claims. So that were agents and they had to go chase behind the customers and then reclaim them. So these kind of things, they were also talking about all the failures, what happened, and how the reputational risk was tackled, how the PR engine was running about behind this. So these were the things. Some kind of these kind of negative things were also discussed in Threadbare. They were quite open about that. Very candid discussions happened, and they were also very welcoming questions from all people and why this happened, how this happened, what can be done, all those things. Otherwise, I was also interested in this physically how the manufacturing things, because it is also interesting to me, but no, it is not directly relative to where I work, but still it was interesting.
Perfect. Let's kind of like switch gears here. Like, thanks for providing this perspective, right? So, at least in the US, what we are seeing is like, there is a lot of noise and churn about tokenization, token costs. And then people are saying that the adoption of AI is not giving the results that we are looking for, right? But you did mention about the Future of Finance Institute, FII, and we were talking about moving away from tokenization and coming to like, real products that can be developed that can be helping to enhance the finance industry, right? So maybe like you coming from the finance background, can you explain, like, what is this announcement about from the Future of Finance into FFI? What are they announced? Like, why is there a push to move from this experimentation to projects? We know it, but I want to listen from your perspective.
Yeah, this happened in last FinTech Festival itself, maybe last July or August. That is generally in this mid of the year, the FinTech Festival happens, and the Minister of Finance and MAS is like RBI or FBI or sorry, not FBI, the Fed of the US. So MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, it controls and regulates the banks and financial institutions here. So in the FinTech Festival, they announced that they need to have a say on how the financial regulation should happen and how the technology and finance can go together with responsible, because like I said, Singapore is Switzerland of the East, and it is a big financial hub. Anything negative happens here get amplified and it gets noticed there. So they wanted to kind of how the technology can shape the future of finance, and that's when they announced this Future of Finance. This was announced last year that some institute will be formed. So, but this year it materialized, and they said this has already been formed and it's been institutionalized and got the blessings of the government. So this has been there, and since I think 5-6 years back itself, Singapore started something called Project Orchid, which is a tokenization of like the you can kind of a CDC, you can say. How SGD can be tokenized and central currency, digital currency can be implemented. To pilot that, they also did some vouchers. First, they wanted to see how the digitized tokens can be sent to the public, and every price spent can be regularly tracked. And they wanted to trace from the finance till the last end, does it get spent only on the intended usage? So, like for the public, they instead of giving cash outs for the benefits of the poorers and other things, they gave instead of CDC vouchers, which is central digital currency vouchers that will be directly coming to you. It can be spent in supermarkets or even hawker centers, anywhere you can see, you can use them. So you can see tell that those if you give a cash out, you won't know where it goes. But if it's CDC, every pi cent you know in where which segment it goes to and whether it goes in the right track and how it is spent, and they don't have to provide for the money immediately. They have to give the cash. If I have $200 CDC, I have to be given that day one itself. But instead, they just provide the money. The money can be spent over the year. So finance also gets some breathing space to provide for this money based on the spending pattern of the people. So this was the Project Orchid. Then from there they got some learnings, and then they started Project Guardian. That was tokenization of assets. So there they made some experiments for say forex products between two countries like Singapore and Hong Kong, like CNY and SGD, HKD and SGD, and MYR and HD, CSGD. So they started some forex related products. Then they also came up with some money market products, digital bonds, everything will be tokenized. So instead of going for very what do you call arts or something like tokenization of those things, NFTs, they went for normal physical bonds, what we're using, physical bonds or physical shares or forex or money market. They tokenized that and started with that. Now from experimentation, they have learned a lot of, and then they have almost matured that. So from now, they want from experimentation to piloting to now into actual products that can be used. But what they want is they are going to take all because there are different networks here now. Everybody is creating token assets based on their network. So now they are looking at interoperability. So within the ecosystems, there are a lot of ecosystems, and assets are working within those ecosystems very well. But now they want to bridge the different networks and want to have a standardized form of protocols to talk to each other and make these immediate settlements, PVPs, DVPs, everything they want to look at.
Perfect. Seems like I think that's a very good advancement, right? Because I think even here in the finance industry and even other industries, the push is towards standardization, right? So because all these individual things happening in their own silos is not going to help anyone, right? So moving into these kind of getting to a common platform, talking about standardization is very good. So that's a welcome move. The one area I think we always talk about when you talk about finance is the risk management, right? And security is one thing, but also finance industry risk management. So anything that came out in terms of risk management, anything that you're aware that you're interested that you want to share? I mean, given your financial background, I probably know that you'll be following those things as well.
Risk management, I think on the financial product side, they have a lot of risk management all in place on the physical, general, normal operations. But now the technology has introduced the AI risk is more prominent now. So what AI-related risks can come into the play. So that's where the one side they are giving this, and already last year they also started two initiatives from the MAS, like Mindforge and Pathfin.ai. So what they do is they come up with AI-related frameworks, and it is more not a prescriptive one, but it's more a recommended one for all the industries. So it is SME or an enterprise or a bank or a financial or manufacturing or whoever. So based on these industrial segments which are quite active in Singapore, they came up with this framework and suggested some models for them, and also some sandboxes for them. For logistics, there is a sandbox. For consumer industry, there is a sandbox. There is an e-commerce, there is a sandbox. So these kind of models they give, they want people to come with use cases, play with those models, improvise those models with them, identify all the risks before they go into the market. So all the risks, they have risk experts from MAS, risk experts from industries. Everybody come there. They help them how to manage the risks, identify the risks, manage the risks, and then give some suggestions also how it can be controlled. And then they go back to their enterprises or medium enterprises, and then they implement there. So the government is quite actively working along with every sector to give them whatever inputs they need, because Singapore is a more a trading hub. As long as the industries thrive, Singapore thrives. So they have to be keeping them active and doing them all the help, like not like other countries where they just leave it to the industries to take themselves.
Perfect.
One thing which cropped me when you said, it's a question to both of you. I'll start, probably Dinesh can take a first stab and then Mahesh can go. So when I think of Singapore, Singapore means governance. That's my mental model, right? So Singapore means standards. Singapore means trendsetter and these kind of guardrails. But US means like innovation, getting the product out of the door. Like, let it be now legacy companies like Stripe or PayPal. Fintech has been innovating at a much faster clip in Silicon Valley and in US especially than any other country in the world. How do you think EAA is gonna change this, or FFFI and fintech, all these things come into play? What kind of things do you see? I will start with Dinesh. I will put him in a spot.
Yeah, sure. Like, we talked about standardization already. It's all about standardization and how we are going to move towards that standardization, right? And you brought a good stark difference, right? I mean, US is an innovator in the sense, like, you see a lot of startup energy in US, right? Not only in Silicon Valley, like, even Far East and, like, most of in Boston, where you are from, across the US, like, there is this startup culture, right? When you compare and contrast that with Europe, it's mostly regulatory structure, right? So they are more into regulations and stuff like that. And I think, again, my experience working with Singapore, I actually worked for a bank at that time. My experience working with Singapore team is that it's a combination of both. You do have innovations, but they also have the regulatory setup backed by it, right? So I think I think they are trying to strike a hybrid in terms of, like, how much of innovation you can allow, but also, like, put the right guardrails for getting it. So if you think about this FFI conference, that's why I talk about risk and security and everything. Sometimes what happens is, when you're innovating, right, you do not focus on security, you do not focus on risk, you do not think about guardrails, right? Of course, like, in US, I mean, I'm not saying, I might be painting a very broad stroke, but you see, like, for example, Anthropic has security first in its mindset, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think about other companies, other AI companies, and even other non-fintech companies, right, the security is actually, like, an afterthought. But countries like Singapore kind of, like, flip the coin there. Like, they are more in terms of security. That's why I think they are talking about standardization. The standardization is important because they want to build better right at the first time, right? Again, if you speak to innovator, like, even let's take an example, right? If you talk to Elon Musk, like, he might think that, this is too restrictive, it will not let anything to grow. So I think I'm like, being very in the middle of the ground, is that we need to strike a balance. I don't think anyone has strike a balance, but I think Singapore is a kind of a country where they are trying to strike a balance. Maybe Mahesh, you can add.
Yeah, like you said, like security is paramount here. So whatever you do, they want it to be highly regulated, because anything like I said, anything that happens the other way, it gets amplified, and Singapore gets, though it's a little dot in the map, what actions happen in Singapore in the finance, it gets amplified everywhere, because every global bank or global financial institutions has got a branch here or a head office here, and the message goes out. So when it comes to finance, Singapore wants to show that robustness here, that nothing can go wrong here. Or if something goes wrong, it can be controlled quite easily, and Singapore is quite resilient about that. They want to showcase that capability always, whether it is a political stability or a financial stability or a manufacturing stability or a trading hub, or even maintaining the Malacca Straits, unlike the Hormuz Strait, what is happening there. Even this kind of maritime navigation also, everything they want to be regulated and want to be very smooth, and the BAU should be quite efficient. So that's where always their focus is. And like you said, not like you said, maybe like recently when Henseng of NVIDIA, when he said he said the five layer cake, the data layer, infrastructure layer, all those things, LLM layer, intelligence layer. If you see countries like Singapore, the infrastructure, energy, and chip manufacturing, these things cannot be not possible in Singapore. But when it comes to data, they do have a data to get into there, data products and analyze. And also on the application layer, they can work a lot. So they know their capabilities and their strength lies there. So when it comes to these kind of things, they want to move their application layer. Just people like you in US, they can innovate in the bottom layers. On application layer, that's where people fail, because when it comes to implementation, that's where all the loopholes come out and the security vulnerabilities come up. Zero-day vulnerability. They want to focus there, and they want to help people where applications can be developed very confidently and secure way in the application layer. That's where their focus is. So they know where their strength lies, and they want to work on that.
No, I think that's also actually the strength of Singapore, right? They always identify where they can excel and then focus on that area, that one area. So with that said, we kind of touched upon this one also, right? Again, US is at an advantage when it comes to AI, because I think a lot of innovations happen here. But at the same time, what is happening, it's good for us because innovation happens. We get to work on all these technology, me and Bala together, right? So we get access to all these technology. We have no restrictions. We can, for example, my company, not me personally, but my company can get the latest and greatest chip that NVIDIA ships out of its got actually they ship right into our data centers right away, right? So but that is not the same case when it comes to other countries, right? Specifically around countries Far East, and who are friendly to China. Like Singapore is a kind of a country where it's it is kind of in the middle, where it's friendly to US and also need to be friendly with China because geopolitical reasons. So the trade restrictions that US has put through, right? So initially we know that NVIDIA chip was banned, and I think Singapore is also a part of that ban in some way. And then there are around 120 countries we had banned from sending some technologies. Now the latest, we banned Mythos and Fable to be shipped to some of these countries. So I want to see how is the Singapore AI community taking these things, right? So these restrictions, because I think a lot of DeepSeek developers are either in Singapore or related to Singapore. So they have a kind of a hub outside of China in Singapore. So how do these restrictions impact you?
See, at least till this recent Fable and Mythos ban came, nobody thought like that, because people were thinking that we were equidistant to politically equidistant with America and China. And when the last year, when Trump government came, it started slapping tariffs on even Singapore. Those has a trade surplus also. They started putting some 10% import tariff on that. And from there, the things started, and Singapore started rethinking that despite all our efforts being in the good books of people, still we are getting a negative impact. So they started how to look at this. And when they were looking at this, the Iran war came, and they were still managing how to get the supply chain management is being tackled. Suddenly this also comes. So now it is like a wake-up call for countries like Singapore, that today Mythos and Fable, which are the frontier models that are not made available to us, what if tomorrow even the existing models don't have access to us, even the older models or even the lesser models, if they don't have it, what will happen to countries like Singapore? So we cannot be building models for that, but like that we can have good partnerships with countries who have models, and we have a long-term relationship with them. And to have a steady flow of oil, we need to have a steady flow of access to LLMs also, SLMs and technologies that come in. So that's where the thinking is now. It is now lots of talks happen around this. What will happen? These kind of what if scenarios are now people are simulating. What if that model is not available? We are all dependent on, say, Google, Gemma or Anthropics, or even older models also, 4.5, 4.4. People are heavily dependent on them. What if we don't have access to those models?
Yeah.
So they are thinking about that and how we need to look at it. Should we rely on all the models everywhere, or should we have distilled models, small models, and only when it is needed we should go to large models? So lots of thought process happening and lots of discussions happening now. But definitely this is going to be a big change, because everywhere, whatever happens around the globe, US is the center and it stimulates this. So in the past also, whatever problem comes, Singapore is taken as an opportunity always. So something will happen, and people will find some ways to go around it.
Thanks, Mahesh. Closing question to both of you. So, Singapore gets F-35s. Of course, countries like Yemen do not get it. So, I was really surprised, like one size fits all, right? Like the policy of banning everything, even within US, it's the thing. Like OpenAI's latest model, which came out yesterday or this week, just this weekend, is not available to every enterprise organization out there in the US. So, uh, it's not a technical question, but also a technical question. So answer it only from a technical viewpoint, even though it's a political question. So are we going to, like the geopolitical alignments of 60s and 70s, the Cold War generation, from a unipolar world in which US had everything under its umbrella? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, of course, you have to answer it technically with Mistral and other models and everything. The second part is, how do you see it for your personal growth? Like, I don't care about the countries, right? Like, I want to earn a living. So, what do you say to the young people who are watching this? How do they steer clear of this political mess out there? Dinesh, I will start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start. So I think, like I said, being in US, right, it has its own advantage, and it's very advantageous. Like, to be in the forefront. We have been innovating, right? The US has been innovating. If you look at the AI space, completely from ChatGPT to Gemini, there's literally a AI race happening. This one. So I used to read this book about like when the first flight was flown, right? When the first flight was flown, like the multiple entrepreneurs who are trying to do the first flight. I'm kind of like comparing that AI, right? So everything is first, how big our model is. That enthusiastic entrepreneurial drive is really amazing in US, right? So in terms of my learning technology, I think I feel like I don't know if I can say that we are extremely privileged and entitled, right, at this point, because we have access to every model, every better NVIDIA chips, whatever you talk about, and then there is also even the other AI companies, like I think Grok was announcing its own chip. Amazon has its set of couple of sticks, right? So when you talk about the AI ecosystem, I like the way US is doing with all these competition going on. We are building an ecosystem, right? We have data center. The only thing that we are short on, if I had to say, is labor, and I think we are filling that gap with H1Bs, right? So again, don't want to go too political into this one, but I think there are gaps in terms of labor, in terms of human resources. We are trying to bridge that gap, but in terms of technology, there is no gap, right? I think we are in the forefront. We are helping it out. But if I think, is it fair that we are putting this restriction on the other countries? I think there is good and bad to it. The good thing is that it keeps the US superiority on the top, so we get to gain. The bad thing is that whenever you restrict a technology to a particular country, the growth kind of starts diminishing. Right, I think Mahesh, you kind of alluded to the point that whenever there is much interaction, Singapore is kind of like sitting at a hybrid state, and driving this conversation has helped technology as overall. But when you're restricting it, it does goes away. So I'll stop there. And I know you asked about the F-35s. I think we still want to sell F-35s. We want more money from you guys. But Mahesh, I'll let you do the rejoiner.
I think regarding F-35, it's a long-standing relation with US, so it will still continue. I think only in some parts there will be some frictions which can be lubricated at any point of time, but that will be managed, because so far Singapore has been very popular for how it diplomatically handles all the countries, and its foreign relation policies are quite good. So that way they will manage it, and it will be managed. At least so far, the situation has not come that Singapore has been completely isolated in any case or whatever. So Singapore has managed to go through this maze, and they managed to, with all these diplomatic efforts, they always try to set right things. So those things, I think Singapore is well versed with that, and they have been doing it for so many years, and they will do it better. On the AI ecosystem, I see that always the technology has always emanated from west and comes to east most of the times. Though China is also equally capable, but they are not like, say, US, that they release it immediately. They want to little bit work on it to come to a mature state, and then they want to go get it out. But in US, when the innovation comes out, the moment it comes out today, they innovate, and tomorrow it is in the market. So that they want to announce, they want to be, it's a capitalistic country. They want to always announce share price, investors' confidence, everything we need. The share market has to be kept alive. Every day there should be a beep there. It has to go up or just to go down, but we should be in the market. So those kind of things always happen in US, but other things in East, whether it is a philosophical mindset that they have to be perfect before coming out. So that kind is always there. And technologically, they are also equally capable, but not, they are always giving also competitive with US, but still they have enough market within themselves to test this before even going out. So that way, the thinking is China can also equally balance this kind of a technological inequality. China can balance the east side. So that's the mindset, and China is also doing that. This kind of a bans or total bans or whatever, it doesn't come. Maybe with US there are some, like they won't give the rare earths ban has come now recently. If you're not giving me the chips, I'm not giving you the rare earths. So this kind of tit for tat is happening there. But when it comes to other countries, I don't think like Europe is also trying to shift away from their mindset what they had with last 50 years with the US. So I think they might also try to align with the East. So it could be now. I'm just thinking it could be a very utopian view also that US may get isolated after some time if the trends go like this.
Perfect. I think let's see what happens. But anyway, thanks for your perspective. So I think we had a good session today. I think it's time to wrap up. But thanks for providing the perspective from the Singapore perspective, right? Like I said, like me and Bala, we are advantaged because we sit here. We have the capacity. I mean, news is everywhere. But anyway, like we have first-hand experience with how it is happening, and we can see our developers and enthusiasts like churning out code immediately, right? I kind of missed that point, like how it is done in elsewhere. And Singapore, like you said, it's like it's kind of like in a hybrid country where the innovations happen, standardization happen, and everything. So I want to always get that perspective. So thanks for bringing the perspective, Mahesh. And in terms of our viewers, like I know this is something that we are trying new. Again, like I said, the idea is to get additional perspectives, additional points of view, and see how we can enhance it. Like how we can shape our thought process in terms of how things are happening in other countries, how things are developed and thought about in other countries as well. So again, thanks for this perspective. I would like to viewers to comment about what do you think about this episode. Do you think there is value in these kind of episodes? And do comment, and let us know what else we can cover. With that said, thanks Bala and Mahesh. I know it's early morning and Mahesh for you. I know it's late at night. But thanks for taking time and coming into this conversation and helping us to understand better. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot. The night is still young, just 9:45, so we can still. It's Saturday, we can have. Yeah, thanks for calling. Thanks, Bala and Dinesh. A good discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.